Welcome back to the Himalayan webinar series. Today we'll zoom into one of my favorite places, a hidden gem inside the Himalayas called the GHNP, or the Great Himalayan National Park. As usual, we are live every day, 8 o'clock at Zoom, the given URL below, and then later in the day, videos are posted on Insta TV, my blog, ultrajourneys.org, and YouTube. Okay, so here you can see a picture of the Sange Valley. So Sange is one of the several valleys that flows through the Great Himalayan National Park. GHNP is unique. It's a protected biosphere located in the Kulu district of Himachal. It has ranges from 1,300 meter altitude all the way to 6,000 meters, the high ranges which you see in the back. Lush green valleys with ferocious streams, beautiful forests, alpine meadows on top of the ridges, and a very steep topography typifies this section of the Himalayas. We'll talk about the four valleys, the four major streams flowing through the park. We'll also talk about the three passes to make again a traverse from east to west, which I did last summer. The three valleys are the Palchangat, the Tirthan Valley, the Sange Valley, and the Nalla Valley. The Great Himalayan National Park is a restricted reserve. You need permits to get inside. It's a little bit commercialized, I would say, especially on the lower entry of the valleys. But once you get inside, you'll see that the place is actually very less explored and requires a little bit of navigation skills, as the trails are not used much anymore. Here a segment from the Wikipedia. So GHNP was established almost 40 years ago in 1984. It's a pretty large area, 1,000 plus square kilometers, and ranges in a great range of altitudes, which also makes it a lot of biodiversity, both in terms of fauna as well as in terms of flora. It's protected under the Wildlife Protection Act of '72. And since 2014, it's also added to the UNESCO list of World Heritage Sites. Here you can see a diagram, which is there on the Great Himalayan National Park website by the HP Tourism Department. So this is actually the only schematic available for the park. You can see four streams here, the Palchangat, the Tirthan Stream Valley, the Sange Valley, and the Nalla, all flowing down from these high ranges here towards, say, the lower forests, and eventually merging with the Bees River coming from the Kulu Valley. Let's maybe take a closer look at Google Earth to put everything in place. So here again, we're looking at the Indian Himalayas, the Western Himalayas from Uttarakhand, Himachal, and Ladakh and Zanskar here. So if you look at Himachal, we have the Dolador on the left, we have Kinnaur on the right, and somewhere here, if we zoom in a little bit, voila, somewhere here located between the Bees, the Kulu Valley, the Bees River, and the Shuttle River coming from actually Spiti, flowing to Rampur. Bordering on both sides, we have the Great Himalayan National Park. On the top, it's bordered by the Parvati Valley and the high ranges of the Pin National Park. And on the base, it's basically bounded by the lower Himalayas. So here, again, we can see four different valleys. So you get in basically from the Kinnaur side, from the Shuttle Valley or Rampur, through a small town of Sarahan, through the Bashleo Pass. And once you enter, you come in the first valley of the Balshangat here, in a small town of Batat. From there, actually, you climb over to the Bashal Pass to get in the more prolonged Tirthan Valley. Entry is Gusheni town. From the Tirthan Valley, you can climb over the Rakundi Peak and the Tirthan Sange Pass into the more bigger Sange Valley, which eventually merges with the Nalla Valley here, the fourth valley at the town of Sange. You can also climb again from Sange to Nalla through the Kandigalu Pass. And finally from here, there is another pass not shown here, the Panchi Galu Pass, from where you can traverse from the Great Himalayan National Park to the Parvati Valley shown on top. Voila. So every valley, like say for example the Saint Valley, is a beautiful forested valley. So there will be trails going along this valley to take you deep inside. The streams are quite wild as they are draining from a long distance. A lot of snow melt from these 6,000-meter high peaks above. Okay, so let's take a closer look. So here we can see again the same map basically with the 4 passes separating the 4 valleys, the Parvati Valley again here, Kinnaur, the Bees Valley on the left, and then the 4 valleys in the Great Himalayan National Park. In this summer I did a traverse starting from Kinnaur over these 4 passes basically, touching the valleys, also exploring the valleys as far as possible, especially Sage and Juanala, and then exiting back from the lower valleys as the Panchigula Pass giving access to Parvati Valley is quite high, 4,800 meters, so it was not yet clear of snow when I explored this place early June. The Great Himalayan National Park is a national park, protected biosphere, but still you'll find small hamlets inside. These are like built typically on very steep slopes of the park. The rivers, as I mentioned, are deeply cut as they are draining a large range of snow-covered peaks. Beautiful, very small settlements and houses built of natural materials, just 5 to 10, overlooking these dramatic valleys. They will do mostly farming, these people, across the Himalayas. Of course, they are self-sustained, growing their own food. And you can also see, as usual, the looms here. Every house will make their own clothes and blankets. Festivals here, let's take a look at a small festival at the village of Manjali in Palshangat, the first valley where all villagers from surrounding villages gather for the opening of a beautiful new hand-carved temple. So from Palshangat then, from the village of Manjali, actually, we climb over the Bashal Pass. Here you can see the Bashal Pass into the Tirthan Valley, where I meet the one and only shepherds in the whole park. I don't see as many shepherds here as in other places of Himachal. Beautifully grazing those meadows, open meadows on top of the forest, the dense forest inside the valleys. Given the steepness of the park and the slopes, villagers typically use these cable cars operated with either mostly diesel engines, as power might not be available in many places to transport goods, materials to the towns, and sometimes carry apples and milk produce, farm produce, back to the valleys, to the roads from where they are transported out of the park. Here you can see the last village of Sungcha in the Tirtan Valley, through which we crossed. Very beautiful, again, steeply built on those slopes, surrounded by those, again, as steep terrace farms surrounding the villages. Here they are drying the grasses, awaiting the winter, I guess, to stock up food for the animals. Then when you go inside the valleys, you come across these beautiful lush green jungles, crystal clear water streams dropping from above. These are all glacial water streams, snow melt, not rain melt. And the only problem as you go deeper is that the trails are not used much. So again, the only thing we have here, this Great Himalayan National Park is not documented on any of the hiking blogs of the some of the guys that I follow who have been hiking through many places in Himachal, but GHNP remains kind of a black box. So the only thing available is this schematic map of the HP Tourism Department, where the trails are marked in dotted lines here. Here you see the same village of Suncha, and then you basically see the trail proceeding on the left side of the stream. At the split, say you have it, if there is a split in the stream, you'll have to take a left, another side stream coming here, cross it, etc., etc. So like that, you basically proceed to further. So of course, what you see on the ground sometimes is this, where the trail is absolutely kind of almost overtaken by the forest as it's not used much anymore, and then it really becomes tough to keep track. Sometimes you get stuck on like steep vertical drops along the stream. So eventually, we lose the trail here somewhere, and we take a right instead, where there is a more clear trail to eventually climb up steeply along the side to the Rakundi top, shown over here, from where we get beautiful views on the high ranges of the Great Himalayan National Park. So this is basically where all the snow melt, all the water comes from, which deeply cuts in the surrounding valleys. Crossing over to the Sange Valley, then Sange is one of the landmarks of Great Himalayan National Park. Again, we come in beautiful meadows. We don't see any shepherds at all, but towards the end of the day, find a beautiful shepherd shelter where we lit up a fire to cook some food, and where we get treated on magnificent views of the moonlit snow-covered peaks while camping. So one of the beautiful pictures I took during the summer. During the day, this is how it looks. You have these meadows on top of the forest, dotted with a lot of beautiful different colored alpine flowers. You see the high ranges far away. Sange Valley has some clear trails, as you can see here. You even have some forest rest houses, which you find in all across Himachal. But unfortunately, here it seems that most of these are like ruined, unused states. Probably built when it was opened and declared national park in '84, and since at least a decade not really used anymore. Most of the tourists might head towards the Manali side or the Parvati side, which is not restricted, free entry, rather than going through the hassle of getting permits and guides to enter this place. Then again, coming inside the Sange Valley here, beautiful lush green forest with crystal clear water stream dropping down from the tops above. Also in some of the villages along the way, here you can see the Sange Valley actually. Again, a schematic diagram, not to scale, but still useful as you know where to expect the bridges, on which side of the stream you have to cross. So here where we basically try to explore the rest of the Sange Valley, we come across the town of Maror. Town is a big word, just some 3-4 houses, wooden houses, where as usual we get treated with overwhelming hospitality. Small shop where we pick up some dry fruits to basically head straight towards the end of the valley, trying to go as far as possible, but eventually ending up somewhere here at the split of the stream where we get stuck, not able to find this bridge. Most probably it was washed away. And we get stuck there in the rains towards the end of the night, getting cold, pretty cold at 3,000 meter altitude already. So we decide to spend the night in one of these caves, at least dry, a little bit protected from the wetness, and again, not able to find any further trail nor any guest houses to stay. Okay, then when taking a U-turn and exiting the Sage Valley, so these are the kind of trails you have, right? Steep valleys with trails cut inside the sides to get out of these, otherwise impossible to traverse without a trail, basically. Finally, at the start of the Sage Valley, at the town of Sital, I believe, we basically start climbing up again towards the Kandigalu Pass to cross over to the Nalla Valley. Again, we come on these beautiful hamlets where the farm produce is ready at the beginning of June. Come across beautiful temples here again, as you saw in the video also. This is a pretty famous one, the Manu temple above the village of Nurli, actually. So multiple levels, all beautiful hand-carved work. Must have taken a humongous amount of work. As I said, yeah, everybody is independent of the global economy, not impacted by the Corona lockdown. So everyone takes care of their own food, takes care of their own clothing, thereby satisfying most of their non-consumer needs. Beautiful alpine flowers, all shades of the rainbow, all different shapes also. So this is true for all parts of the Himalayas and Uttarakhand, everywhere where you go above the forest into the alpine meadows, you get these beautiful flowers. Every flower typically feels good, thrives in a certain altitude, in a certain region. Finally, we come in the Jivanala here. So we cross over from this last village, contour along the map as indicated by the schematic tourism map, cross the Kandigalu Pass, beautiful pass during sunset, finally settle down in one of the Tach. TH means Tach, map means meadow. We find a guest house in one of these meadows, settle down there, and then basically proceed further to find the bridge to cross the Jivanala. It's a ferocious stream, impossible to walk along or cross anywhere on the stream. Deeply cuts into the landscape again, so impossible to follow a simple train along the stream. And we have to climb up steeply here in the high ranges, the steep high ranges, to basically cross over ridges and gullies and ridges and gullies to make it out of this valley. The trail again is not used much, so nobody really seems to go there. So it's a little bit of trekking, trail finding experience to stay on track. And on these steep high slopes, I mean, crossing the snow-covered gullies remains a challenge. Here you can see a picture during after crossing the pass of beautiful rhododendron fields high up in the Jivanala Valley. As I said, we have to cross several of these snow-covered gullies again. As you cross the western side, which has less solar exposure in the afternoon, it typically gets cloudy. So unlike the east and the south, where the sun melts most of the snow at the beginning of the summer, and the northern and the western slopes, many of the kind of shallow covered gully slopes still have to be crossed. Easy to cross in the afternoon when it's soft, more difficult to cross when it's frozen in the morning. Finally, we find some, again, abandoned shelters, all in ruins, the roof fallen down, walls fallen down, where we can stay for the night, make a small fire to cook some tasty Maggi noodles at the end of a draining day. We proceed further then to the Jivanala the next morning, and then we find that little bridge which was marked on the tourism map, which I showed earlier, to cross over to this ferocious stream and then climb up steep through the forest to the high ranges. On the way, we see the remains of wildlife, a langur, black-faced monkey, which points possibly to the presence of predators, or maybe he was just an old monkey and fell sick. This is what I mean with traversing those high ranges. You can see here typically those slopes, majestic, steep, vertical drops that characterize the Great Himalayan National Park. You'll have these little trails that basically not go flat, but go up and down along these steep ridges. And whenever you cross these kind of semi-frozen, frozen because there is water flowing, which keeps the snow cool and intact. Whenever you have to cross these gullies, it's really tricky because it's very steep here. And if you start slipping, you basically fall down in these vertical drops here. So you have to carefully make steps or cut steps with the ice axe to cross these gullies. On the way, we finally find the white gold of Himachal and Uttarakhand, the so-called Jungli nalla, a highly prized medicinal root which gets collected all across the high ranges as soon as the snow melts in the month of May and June, and fetches almost 20,000 rupees per kg as it gets smuggled across the border with Tibet. So we meet a couple of the locals collecting these roots for 1.5 months, then making enough money basically to chill out for the next of the year. Same locals also collect these beautiful big rock quartz crystals high up in the ranges again, hidden somewhere in the soil and in the rocks. Beautiful, very heavy, beautiful formations of creations of nature. As you come again then a little bit closer to the last settlements in the valley, the last villages, you come across these beautiful ancient paths. You can clearly see this would have taken humongous efforts again to create these paths across those steep slopes. And this points to the fact that once upon a time, this would have been, these paths would have been used as decades ago. The highways and the plains and the bus connectivity might have not been faster than just crossing over the passes using these paths. Finally, we come to the first settlement in the Jiva Nalla Valley. Beautiful settlement, mostly abandoned. Not many people stay there. When we crossed, only a shepherd was residing over there, surrounded by beautiful alpine flowers, a lot of yellow and blue flowers. And with nobody around, not much food left still. Before we knew it, home delivery there by Dunzo. Somebody brought us 20 chapatis, nice, freshly made sabji, and 2 cups of tea as we settle down for the night again in one of these abandoned buildings. Voila, this gives you an overview of the beautiful Great Himalayan National Park. You'll find day-to-day, pass-to-pass blogs on my blog ultrajourney.org with a lot of more photos and description in case you're interested to walk my footsteps. Thanks. Tomorrow we'll be proceeding with one of the most beautiful places, the Tolador, which separates the Kangra Plains with the Chamba Valley. So stay tuned and see you guys tomorrow. Any questions, doubts, feel free to drop as comments below the Insta TV post or YouTube. See you guys tomorrow.